Welcome children. Now today we are going to discuss about Unit 2 Globalization. Introduction of globalization. What is globalization? Globalization is the integration of a country with the world economy. Integration means what? Combining all the units or all the trade procedures with the other countries. So we have to mingle with the other countries for doing some trade. So that is known as globalization. It signifies as a process of internationalization and liberalization. Liberalization is nothing but where you give your liberty in rules and procedures. You are going to give some liberty to the traders. So that is known as liberalization. So what is internationalization? Where you are going to have a trade with the other countries and you are going to do trade with the globally, worldwide you are going to do trade. That is known as liberalization and internationalization. Next is, we should know when this particular globalization has come into existence. We used to think this globalization, liberalization, privatization, we would have learnt in the previous chapter as new economic policy, which was introduced by our ex-Prime Minister Mr. Manmohan Singh. But globalization is a term which was done in the early period also. Before the advent of the Britishers also, it was there, globalization was there. What is that? That stage is known as archaic stage. Archaic stage is nothing but the old stage, wherein Andrew Gudrun Frank said it is an early form of globalization which existed during the Hellenistic age. What is Hellenistic age? Very old age, wherein ancient period. That is a better way of explaining this particular word. Hellenistic age is nothing but ancient period where globalization has already taken place. The trade link between the Roman Empire, Parthian Empire, Han Dynasty developed globalization through Silk Road. What is Silk Road? The route in which they made trades. What are the different countries? Where are the different countries where they made the trade? That route is known as Silk Road. Next is proto-globalization. Proto means characterized by the rise of maritime European empires. Maritime European empires means that is, they were doing business globally in a very ancient way. That is they did not adopt any modern techniques and all over there. But this proto-globalization came into existence with the modern techniques also. What are the modern techniques? The first business was not done privately. Now, this proto-globalization insisted in private business. What is private business? Wherein the government will not interfere. That is known as private business. Wherein they were doing business with the all over the world. So this is the way in which British East India Company came into existence. So what did the British East India Company do? They came to trade with India only, because we have got so much of resources during that time. So they said we will do trade with India. So next they formed the Dutch East India Company. These two East India companies were established during this proto-globalization. Proto is nothing but characterized by the rise of maritime European. Maritime means present. It is during the 19th century. It was like that. So that is known as the maritime European empires. So maritime European empires are nothing but the British East India Company and the Dutch East India Company. I think you would have understood, children. Next we will go on to modern globalization, that is during the advent of 19th and 20th century. There was a growth in capital investment and merchant production, and the trade was done by multinational firms developed. So what they were doing before, during the proto-globalization, they just planned to have a trade between countries. But now what they did, they want to invest more and more money so that our production will go on, merchant production will increase. So for that reason, they started introducing the multinational firms. That is, multinational firms means they will be having a firm in their home country and then they will be doing business in other countries. That is known as multinational firms. We will be reading it in a detailed explanation will be there in your next part of the lesson. Now you know about this multinational firms is nothing but doing business with the other countries. So there will be a growth in the capital investment will be there, and there will be an increase in the merchant productions. So this is about the modern globalization. Next we are going to see about the trade and traders in South India. South Indian trade guilds were formed by merchants in order to expand their trading activities. See, we have to expand, we cannot stay at one stage itself. So they started forming groups. That group is called as South Indian Trade Guilds. Next, in the year 1053 AD, the Kalinga trade took place, and then where the Britishers started entering into India. Next, the Europeans, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the Britishers, Danes and the French, they also started trading with India. See how many countries are trading with India. Why? We had that much of resources in India. So everyone wants to have a nice trade relationship with the Indians. So that too especially through sea route founded by Vasco da Gama. You must have learnt in your earlier chapters or in your earlier lessons that Vasco da Gama found out a sea route, and through that sea route they started doing the trade. So all these countries entered India to do trade, and especially they were trading with India only for the resources and especially for the raw materials. They had industries formed. You must have learnt about industrialization. What is industrialization? Nothing but man-made things are changed into machine-made things. So they had machinery. For that machinery they need raw materials. So for the raw materials, their own country is not self-sufficient with the raw materials. So what they did, they started trading with other countries. Next, globalization in India. So what happened during 1980 and 81, there was a severe imbalance of payments. What is balance of payments? Balance of payments is nothing but there is a imports and exports. The gap between the imports and exports is known as balance of payments. How much you are going to export and how much you are going to import. That balance must be there. So because of this difficulty, especially there was a very hike in the oil price and Gulf War during 1990 and 91. What happened? This war has taken place and it made a balance of payments was there, because we cannot export anything and we cannot import anything. So there was a drastic change in our imports and exports. So that is the reason why there was a balance of payments. So balance of payments made a great change in this globalization. So during this 1980 and 81, they lost their credit worthiness. India lost the credit worthiness because there was no international market. The government has mortgaged 40 tons of gold to the Bank of England. Mortgaged means what? Adamanam vikkiradhunu solnom Tamil. So we have given mortgages to the Bank of England and we lost our credit worthiness. What is credit worthiness? நம்மளுடைய கடன் கொடுக்கக்கூடிய தன்மை. நம்மளால திரும்பி கடனை செலுத்தணுமா? கடன் வாங்குறது ஈஸி, அதை திரும்பி கொடுக்கணும் இல்லையா? ஸோ அந்த திருப்பி கொடுக்குற டேர்முக்கு பேர் தான் credit worthiness. So credit worthiness is nothing but paying back the credit, paying back the money to the bank. So for that we kept India for a mortgage. அடமானம் வச்சோம். How much? 40 tons of gold was kept as mortgage to the Bank of England. Next, we will go on to see that there was our new economic policy which was strengthened. So what happened? We must have a remedy. We have a problem now. What problem we have got? We do not have credit worthiness. So we changed the way of doing the business or doing the trade. So what happened? They started doing the trade with the new economic policy. It was strengthened, it gave power, and it was signed as a Dunkel draft in 1994. Next, we will go on to what are the reforms that are made to adopt globalization in India. First is abolition of industrial licensing, except for a few industries. What is the industrial licensing? When you want to start an industry, you must have some license. When you have a bike, you must have a license, isn't it? So same way, when you start an industry, the government must give you the approval to do the business or to start the industry. So that is known as licensing. So this was abolished. What was abolished? No need to have any license. So that was abolished. So that relaxation was given by the government so that the industrial licensing was not applicable for few industries. And then next, there was a reduction in the number of industries reserved for public sector. See, you must know the different types of sectors here. One is public sector and private sector. What is private sector? An individual doing a business is known as a private sector. Then what is public sector? Public sector where the government also will do some business. So that is known as the public sector. So what happened? There was some reservations made for the public sectors to handle the industries, or the number of industries handled by the public sector was reserved, was reduced. Why they started reducing? Because the interference of government was very much, so that the trade was not done liberally. As we stated in the first statement, liberalization, that liberalization was not given for the government. So what they did, they started reducing the number of industries reserved for the, specially for the public sector. Next is fixation of realistic exchange rate of rupee to exchange exports of Indian goods. You must know, whenever we are doing some business, that especially when we are going to do some exports, you must have the currency of the other country also. So our currency and the import country's currency must match. Only then we can do the exports and imports. So for that reason, what they said, they had a fixation of exchange rate. What is the rate? So for the rupee, for our rupee, and for the country which we are going to do the trade. So they had a fixation rate, and then they had an exchange rate also. They fixed that rate, and then they started doing this exports from the Indian goods. Especially for Indian goods, this rate was fixed. Next we will go on to foreign private sector by reducing import duties. So whenever we are going to import some products from the other country, you have to pay a duty which is called as import duty. It will be paid in the customs. Okay, you must know this word and all, customs. You must have heard, whether we are going to do shipping or through flight, you have to pay your custom duty. So this custom duty was reduced, especially in private sectors, foreign private sector. See, they are not saying about the public sector. Why they are not insisting in public sector? Because the government cannot reduce anything. But as a private sector, as an individual person, as a single person, I can reduce. I can have a reduction in the import duties. So that is why they insisted that foreign private sector will have a reduction in import duty, especially private sector, foreign private sectors. Next is amendment of foreign exchange regulations. What is foreign exchange regulations? Wherein you have got some procedures, rules and procedures to import and export. So that amendments were there, changes were made there, amendments were made for foreign exchange regulations. Next we will go on to the statutory liquidity ratio was reduced by the RBI. Now what is RBI? RBI is nothing but the Reserve Bank of India. What is Reserve Bank of India? Where you are going to have a exchange of money. So exchange of money or exchange of your currencies will be done only through RBI. As stated earlier, there was a rate fixation, isn't it? Exchange rate was fixed, I told you, no? So for that, RBI will interfere over there. For that, what the RBI did, there was a statutory liquidity ratio was reduced. What is that statutory liquidity ratio? Liquidity means making money immediately is known as liquidity. For example, if you are going to have some furniture, you just go and sell, you can get money immediately. So that is known as liquidity. So what the RBI said, same way, when you are going to have an import or export from the other countries, the products that we are going to get, you have to make a resale. You are going to resell it. You are not going to use it for your own consumption. The country is not going to use the products imported or exported for their own use. If that is so, it will be called as consumption. But now we are not going to consume it. What we are going to do? We are going to make a resale of it. So what will happen when you make a resale of that particular product? You will be getting a profit. So what will that profit do? With the help of that profit, the government will earn some revenue. So what the RBI said, that they will have the liquidity ratio can be reduced, so that you can increase your GDP. The last lesson we learnt, no, GDP. So if you want to increase your GDP, you must have a reduction in your statutory liquidity ratio. See, we spoke about the silk and spice route. What is this silk and spice route? That is trading with the other countries, especially Europe, Egypt, Persia, Arabia, India, China, Somalia. All these countries had a interlink of international trade. So in European traders, what they did, the European companies which came to India during this period, the discovery of a new sea route from Europe to India via Cape of Good Hope by Vasco da Gama for reaching the civilized world. So, they started trading with this Cape of Good Hope. Then goes to the Portuguese. The Portuguese, under the leadership of Vasco da Gama, landed at Calicut on May 1498. Then profit of the goods brought by Vasco da Gama to Portugal were 60 times the cost of the entire expedition to India. The second trip of Vasco da Gama in 1502 led to the establishment of trading station at Calicut, Cochin and Canamoro. Cochin was the early capital of Portuguese in India. Next is the Dutch. The Dutch undertook the several voyages from 1596 and formed the Dutch East India Company in 1602. In 1605, Admiral Van der Hagen established Dutch factory at Masulipatinam and Nisamapattinam, Devapattinam in 1610. Upon the negotiating with the king of Chandragiri, founded another factory at Pulicat. The other commodities exported by the Dutch were indigo and Bengal raw silk. Pulicat was the headquarters of Dutch in India. Next comes the British. The Britishers, on 31st December 1600, Queen Elizabeth granted charter to the East India Company. On southeastern coast, the English established at Masulipatinam in 1611 and near Pulikal in 1626. The Sultan of Golconda granted the English the Golden Fireman in 1632, by which they were allowed to trade freely in their kingdom ports. In 1639, built a four-feeted factory in Madras, which was known as Fort St. George, which soon displayed Masulipatinam as headquarters of English on the settlement of the Coromandel coast. The Danes from the East India Company and arrive in India 1616. The Danish settlements were established at Tharangabar in Tamil Nadu in 1620, which was the headquarters of Danes in India. They failed to strengthen themselves in India, and in 1845 they were forced to sell all their Indian settlements to the Britishers. The French factory in India was established in 1668 by obtaining permission from the Sultan of Golconda. In 1693, the Dutch captured Pondicherry, which was handed back to the French. In 1701, Pondicherry was the headquarters of the French. Even now, today also, the French has a domination over Pondicherry, we all know. Next, we are going to see about multinational corporation. A short note on multinational corporation. MNC is an organization which owns and controls production of goods and services in at least one country other than the home country, which means what? They will be having all their industrial part of it will be, all their office will be in the main office will be in the home country, and they will be doing trade in the other countries. That is known as multinational corporations. So, it controls the production of goods and services from not only from one country, at least among 2 or 3 countries. So, that is known as other than the home country. So, home country is different and the trading part of the countries will be different. So, that is known as MNCs. So, first MNC in India is East India Company, which came to India to trade, and it paved the way for the evolution of MNCs. So, MNC was started during the East India Company itself. Next is the most of the MNCs now present belongs to main four major exporting countries, that is USA, UK, France and Germany. So, these are the 4 different countries which are making a major exports from our country, which is doing a very good business with our country. Out of the 15 largest MNCs, 11 belongs to Americans. See how many Americans has come into existence during this multinational corporation has started. So, these are the technologies that have been developed, or these are the way in which we are developing our economy. So, as stated earlier in our previous chapter, we would have discussed about the GDP part of it. What we said, there must be a growth in the GDP. So, how will this growth be there? Only if you are going to do some business, there will be some growth in the GDP or in our economy. still we say that we are in a developing country. Why we say that we are in a developing country? Because we are just making only a minimum part of the traders only we are doing. So, we have to expand our trading procedures. So, for that we started doing multinational corporations or multinational companies came into existence, and among them Americans were the first 15 largest company they are holding in India. So, this is about multinational. How this multinational companies have had a growth? During 1980, there was a substantial growth to foreign collaborations. What is collaborations? Collaboration is nothing but wherein India, the one part of the industry will be controlled by India, and there will be a interference of the foreigners also. So, that is known as foreign collaborations. So, Indian company along with the foreign companies both mixed together, where they will be having a terms and agreements will be placed among them, and they will be making trade. So, that is known as foreign collaborations. Next, about 12,760 foreign collaboration agreement was signed in between the year 1948 and 1988. See, during this period, we had many foreign collaborated companies in India. So, there were great MNCs and great employment opportunities also was given to them, given to the people. So, there was a rise in the standard of living also. Next, there will be a because of this collaborated companies has came into existence, there was an increase in the flow of foreign direct investment. What is foreign direct investment? FDI. That is the expansion of foreign direct investment, short form of foreign direct investment, FDI. So, what is foreign direct investment? Foreign direct investment means that is the capital will be invested by a foreign country and they will be doing business or they will be starting a business in India. That is known as foreign direct investment. So, this was liberalized. There was some procedures were there, and those procedures were liberalized by the government July and August 1991 through foreign investment policy. So, they framed a policy called as foreign investment policy, wherein they were given liberalization to have a foreign direct investment, that is the outsiders or the outside countries also will come in and have a capital investment in our company. They will start a company and they will be investing, that is the share, part of the share will be given by our company, but the total capital will be governed by the foreigners. So, that is known as foreign direct investment. Reasons for the growth of MNCs. Why should be there is a growth? Expansion of market territory, that is they are going to expand their trade places. Territory means places. So, the places were expanded for the growth of, there was a growth in our MNCs. They started trading in different areas. So, there was a growth in our MNC. Next is marketing superiorities, that is products were given importance. What is that product? See, whenever we are going to talk about the product, that is especially when we say that it is a foreign collaborated product or a foreign product, if it is made in Japan, China, then we are more interested or there are more customers for those kinds of products. So, what will happen? The producers will started investing in marketing superiorities will be maintained, that is they will take up the market, they will own the market and then they will control the market. So, what will happen? There will be an increase in the price level. So, if there is going to be an increase in the price level, what will the consumers do? They will start investing or they will start working for their more income. So, that is going to indirectly pave way for their upliftment of the standard of living. So, that is known as marketing superiorities. Next comes the financial superiorities. What is financial superiorities? As we stated earlier, we say that India is a developing country. Why we say India is a developing country? Because our economy is not up to the standard. So, we say it is a developing country. So, we have to now think about the financial support also. We must have a financial support from our government also. So, what will happen when you are going to invest a capital in industry, you have to think about the investment as well as your outcome. That is, according to the investment, whether you are going to get your profit or not. So, when there is a financial support, when there is an increase in the finance, then you can have your profit margin also will be increased over there. So, there will be a financial superiority, or you will be having a domination over the finance also. Next is technological superiorities. What is technological superiorities? Here we have introduced many technologies. Nowadays, new technologies have emerged. So, what we do, we take into consideration all those technologies, and then we started introducing all the technologies in our business, and we started trading, or we started doing the business. When we are doing that kind of a technology, or when we are going to use that kind of a technology, there may be an positive as well as negative impacts on the society. That we will learn it in a later stage. What are the impacts on the society? So, here technology superiority will dominate, not only finance, not only market, not only the territory part of it, not only the consumer part of it, even the technology also will take a place over there. And then next comes your production innovations. Innovations means what? What is innovation over there? Developing a new technology or finding out a new way for producing a particular product, that is known as production innovations. So, when you start innovating new products or new ways or different ways in which you can attract the consumers or attract the people of the country, what will happen? There will be more income for the government. So, they started introducing all these expansion of the market and marketing, financing part of it, technology part of it, production part of it. Everywhere there was a interference of the government as well as the foreigners, so that there will be a combination of both the things. Then we can say there is this was the reason why there was a growth in the multinational corporations. Okay, thank you children for listening to me. Thank you. We will meet in the next class.